this is the Andy Warhol technique, where we look at the Andy Warhol images of faces and try and find an equivalent in digital imaging. And so we're going to create an illustration which looks a little bit like Andy Warhol print. Now, of course, he didn't do them digitally, but that's where we're going. And first, you need to choose a face. Now, if you want 3 colors, which is where I'm going, you need to choose an image that has a background, so we can remove the background, and then some contrast across the face, because we're going to use the highlights and the dark areas. So any sort of skin color can be used, but something like this, I've lost my background, so I don't have I wouldn't have the 3rd color. I'm going to use an image. Let's just use this image here that I've had for years, and all I'm doing is I'm dropping it down into Photoshop. So dragging it down and dropping it into Photoshop in the dock. Now, I know this is a really teeny tiny image. I can look at the size of it by going image size, and here it gives me an idea of, if I printed this image, it would print 13 centimeters by 14 centimeters, so kind of that size. But the resolution isn't very good in this image, so I'm going to improve the resolution. And what that does is it just copies the pixels and just fabricates information that isn't really there. Okay, so it's really just resampling the colored pixels that are already there. It just means I have a better start for this particular technique. Now, what I need is, I'm just going to put that away, it's my layers. So I'm going to leave my layers out. Generally, I'm going to work with this layer, so I'll probably want to unlock the layer. And you might want to keep a copy of the background layer just for comparison later on. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm going to unlock this layer, and I'm also going to remove the background. So when I'm on a layer, I will get offered things in this sort of selection bar down here. These will change all the time. So for instance, I'm going to remove the background. In fact, even if I hadn't unlocked it, I would get offered remove background and it would unlock it for me. So what happens is, it doesn't actually remove the background. Okay, what it does is it masks. Inbuilt into Photoshop, it will automatically apply what's called a mask. Now I am just going to apply that mask because for our purposes it just gets in the way. It's just another thing that could confuse you along the way. So what I'm doing is I'm right clicking. If you don't have a right click, you can hold Control on your keyboard and click, and you say apply layer mask. And we'll get into masks later on. So now what I want to do with this is turn it into a very black and white version. So I don't want any grey tones, I don't want any subtleties. What I'm going to do is use something called an image adjustment. I'm going to use in particular threshold, and that gives me a histogram of all the lights and all the dark areas. So you can see what I can do is I can push the white pixels into the darkness and vice versa. Okay, so this is the white end, this is the black end. So you can see I can create a silhouette if I wanted to. I'm just going to push the pixels up a bit, but still maintain the sort of elegance of the photograph. So I'm going to click OK. The next step is simply to make a duplicate. So loads of ways you can make a duplicate. You can right click, duplicate layer. You can duplicate layer from the flyout menu. I just tend to drop it into the plus sign. So don't click the plus sign. That gives you a fresh layer, right? For duplication, I'm dragging it down and letting it go on the plus sign. That duplicates it. So that's been there forever. Another way is up here, layer, new, no, not you, sorry, layer, duplicate layer. Now, what I've got is 2 copies, black and white. I'm going to name one white, and I'm going to name one black. And then I also want a colour underneath. Doesn't really matter what order you do these things in. I could have put the underlying colour in first. I will need a fresh layer for the colour, and then that layer should be right at the bottom of the hierarchy. So to fill it with colour, I could simply go to my paint bucket and choose a colour in my colour picker. A slightly more sophisticated way is to go edit, fill, and then pick colour. And I can specifically choose a colour. It's just a nicer way to do it than using the paint bucket. So that's going to fill with orange. If I'd chosen foreground or background colour, it would match whatever is in the foreground or the background here. These are foreground and background colours, and then of course you've got black, 50% grey and white. Okay. Now, each particular layer needs to have its specific pixels. So what I mean by that is this layer is my white layer, and I want to get rid of the black pixels. So again, there are many ways you can do that. A focused way to do it is to go select. So if you imagine, if you forget how to do it, you're always going to select something to get rid of it. Okay, so I'm going select, color range, and then I'm going to pick up a black pixel here. Mistake people make is they do it here. We want to do it over here. Okay, and then you say okay, and then I can just simply delete from this layer. You must deselect, so you can either do that up here, or you'll notice that you'll be offered deselect. So you can deselect there. Turn the white layer off, turn the black layer on. Select the layer, make sure you're on the black layer. Mistakes that people make are they're still on the white layer and they're trying to delete from the black layer and nothing is happening. So make sure you're on the layer you want to work with. Having done that, again, we do color range. And this time it's the black layer, so I want rid of the white pixels. So I select a white pixel and I delete. And then, of course, I'm going to deselect. And if I don't deselect, it will interfere with other things that I want to do in the image. So, you know, it's quite nice as it is. I quite like it as it is. But I'm going to turn the white layer on, and we're going to replace the colours in each layer. So, nice simple way to do it is to apply a layer style. So you have layer styles here, and you have something called color overlay. But a really quick way to do it is on the layer you want to change the color, double click just in this space here. So not over here, that will do something else. Just over here, double click, and then you must come right down to color overlay. It's no good just turning it on. That just applies the previous color overlay, although I must say I like that pink. You must come down, and then you can choose a color. Okay, so I'm going to leave that because I like that pink, and I'm going to say OK, and then OK again. And even though it doesn't look pink, the color is sitting on top. Now if I want to go in and edit that color, you just simply double click it and you can go back in and edit the color. So the second one, double click, color overlay. Notice you've also got a gradient overlay and a pattern overlay as well. It's just choosing the same color, So I'm going to find a nice contrasting colour that's going to work, or something subtle, maybe even quite like that deep red. We'll go a bit deeper, something like that. And then I'm going to say OK. So if I'm happy with that, great, I tick OK. If I'm not, I can go back into the colour and still make changes. So I'm going to say OK. That effectively gives me my Andy Warhol. I'm going to make sure I save it. You always want to be saving your master documents. So in the prepared folder, I'm going to save, and just make sure it's a Photoshop document, which means it's completely editable, and you put it into the right place. So I'm going to put it into Warhol, and we'll call it Face Master. Save. Okay. Final thing is that you can then you could take screen grabs of it, or you could save a copy and save a JPEG version of it. Okay. And I would put that into a separate folder. And then you could make changes. So I can either go in and individually change the colour, or I can add a layer adjustment. So for the threshold, we went to image adjustment. They're actually the same things, but the layer adjustment is non-destructive. Okay, it sits on top. So I'm going to make a hue saturation layer this time, not a threshold. And then I can completely transform the colour throughout the whole image. So if I see something I like, okay, let's just go somewhere here, then I could create another JPEG. So save as, or save a copy rather, and we can apply JPEG. And this time I'm going to call it, let's just call it according to the colours. So this one is more like purple. Let's call her face blue here. Okay. I'm turn off that adjustment and save a JPEG. And we'll call that one pink, and so on. So you could keep changing it and then saving JPEGs from your master document. Okay. Alternatively, if that's too much for you to take in, you could just take screen grabs, like so. So I'm using Shift Command plus number 4, and then that gives me this crosshatch, and I can take a picture. So then I'm going to turn that on. I'll do another one, and I'm going to do a whole bunch of them just by changing that colour. And they're all going to go onto the desktop over here. So as I'm taking them, they're saving onto the desktop. So let's get a yellow version. And the idea is I want about 6 of them. And of course, at any time you can go in and do changes to the individual colours as well. So for my final one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, let's just move that back. I love that pink, it's fantastic. And I'm going to go back, but this time I'm going to go into the mask, and I'm going to pick up my eraser tool and just show you that I can erase back. Okay, so let's change it, and you can see that was the original colour, so I've erased it back to the original colour, and I can keep doing that. Oops, as long as I'm in the mask, like so. That's kind of quite nice as well, I like that. So we'll have a bit of a face with the original. And I'll save one of those as well. Don't forget to save. So once I'm finished everything, save.